To my immediate right, this man is a legend, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Jess Jackson, damn it.
Thank you.
All right. Before we dive into this, if you don't know, you haven't done your Googles, your Wikipedias, or whatever it is, Jess is a fucking legend, okay? An entrepreneur, an exceptional businessman, an engineer, all of your different attributes and slashes. Okay, I'm leaving a lot of shit out, but it is what it is. Jess is here. Before we get started into like the technical stuff, I do want to talk about your journey because a lot of people are engineers here. A lot of engineers watching at home. How'd you get into it? How'd you know you wanted to be an engineer and start your journey?
Well, I didn't start off as an engineer. Like that was never my intention at all. It was like, I was a DJ. So I started off DJing on the pirate radio stations in London. And you know what a pirate radio station is? It's like an illegal radio station. So we used to like put transmitters on buildings and broadcast illegally to London. And I started DJing when I was like 12. And I had a DJing career for about 14 years in London doing that, you know?
Now, everybody says that you become a DJ, you become a producer, right, or vice versa. Right. How did the DJ transform into you becoming an engineer? Like, what's the connection?
Well, the natural progression is from being a DJ is to spin your own cuts, right?
Right.
So like, back then it was like, we needed our own music to play out because that's what separated you as a DJ. So it wasn't like playing other people's records. The way that you would pop off as a DJ was if you could spin your own cuts. And so we used to produce our own music, and like we would work from Monday to Friday making music, and then on Friday we'd go down to Music House in London, which was like a little Jamaican shack, and we would cut dub plates on vinyl, and little 10-inch dub plates.
Oh, Mixed by Ali, everybody.
What's up, Ali?
It's his shit. He can do what he want. Turn the mic on. My bad. Go ahead, Jess.
So we would have dub plates to play on a Friday, Saturday night, and then Sunday we'd rest, and then Monday start making music again. And we didn't even know what engineers was or what producing was. We just knew that we needed fresh music to play at the club or on the radio. That's all it was.
Now, the connection between engineering, DJing, producing, stuff like that, you kind of developed it out of a necessity, or was it a conscious decision between you and your boys, like, okay, we need an engineer, and you like, fuck it, I'll do it? Or is it like, how did that happen?
No, it was just out of necessity. Like you said, it was like, I don't name anything, you know what I mean? It's like, you're not an engineer, you're not a producer, you're not a mixer, you're not anything, you're just making music. And that's all we set out to do. Like it was just completely out of necessity. Like, we need to learn how to make beats. All right, cool. That's how we learn.
I do want to get into auto-tune because that's something that is everybody here using auto-tune? Raise your hand if you're on. That's crazy.
So no one. No, I'm playing.
But I do want to get into that. Like, first of all, just so we're clear, what is auto-tune? Like, what is the actual thing? Like, what's the definition? What do you define it? How does Jess view auto-tune?
Real-time vocal pitch correction.
That was fire. That was off the dome, too. He freestyled that shit. But I want to get into the history of development because, like, I always see people say, like, create something that the world needs, right? And a lot of people need auto-tune. Like,
the best inventions come out of necessity, right?
Facts.
Yeah.
So the inspiration behind that, was it developed out of necessity? Did you sit down one day and be like, I need a tool? Like,
no. So it was actually invented in 1994, and by Dr. Andy. And he was a scientist dealing with seismic activities. And a friend came to him and said, I need this for the studio. So that's when he developed it, and that's when it was used, I think, for the first time on Cher's album, you know, on that Cher single.
Wow.
You know, do you believe in life?
I didn't know
after
that.
love?
That's crazy.
That auto-tune on that?
Yeah,
You
remember
just fucked up her whole legacy, bro. You just fucked up Cher's whole legacy with that one.
I didn't know that. That was okay. Go ahead, continue.
And I didn't get involved. I was obviously using it for years and years and years, you know. And I didn't get involved until about 2016, I think it was, when we acquired the company from Andy. He wanted to retire. You know, he had a lifetime of it. And I was using it day in and day out anyway. So when it came into the office, it was like, it seemed like a good investment to make since I knew it anyway, you know. And I knew exactly what my frustrations were with it, how to make it better.
Can you share some of that? Like frustrations with auto-tune and then ideas that you had to make it to improve it?
Yeah, I mean, at the time, like, I remember we were doing sessions with, you know, I was Tiger's producer for like, what, 13, 14 years, something like that. And at the time, we were in the studio with Chris Brown, and I just remember we used to use Auto-Tune 5, like an earlier version back then, and the operating systems of the computers are upgraded, and Auto-Tune 5 was in a place where it couldn't work anymore on the current computer setups.
'Cause that's the version everybody wanted, right?
I mean, it was, to me, it was the best sounding version,
right.
you know, with the lowest latency. So I wanted to bring out Auto-Tune 5 back to the new platform. So we invented Auto-Tune Classic because of that. It was like classic mode. So, you know, I made sure that would happen. And then I was also frustrated in using like third-party applications to figure out the key of songs. Not that I can't do it on a piano or anything, but it was like, you're in a session, Chris is like writing a lyric off the top of his head, and you want to cut a top line real quick, and he runs in the booth and he's like, record me real quick. You know what I mean? You ain't got time to like sit on the piano and figure out the key of a song real quick. You know what I mean? So like, we used to drop the songs into like third-party applications, and then hopefully it would spit out the right information, and then we'd input that into Auto-Tune, and half the time it was wrong, and we'd have to like mess around. And so out of that became, out of necessity, I invented Auto Key. I had the idea of doing this thing called Auto Key, and it was just like, why don't we just have an app that we can throw on a guitar?
He said I invented Auto Key. That's crazy. All right, go ahead.
Well, it was just an idea. You know what I mean? It was
no, I mean,
like,
that's a full bar. But go ahead.
No, it was just an idea. It was like, you know, I drew it on an envelope one day, and I was like, you know, I sent it to the CEO, and I was like, why don't we do this? You know what I mean? Like, because at the moment I'm having to do this whole workaround thing. And that night he built it. He built like a little wireframe prototype, and I was using it the next day, and I was like, this is crazy. This works perfect. And then a couple of months later we released it.
I think that's important. Like, just, you know, obviously as we're dealing in now times, you know, all of these plugin companies, you know, they choose the business over the creative, right? I think that's what was so important with you acquiring and the team acquiring Auto-Tune is, you know, it keeps the integrity of the creation process, right? You know, you're not trying to click a one button, okay, let me give Future's Auto-Tune preset and run that, right? You know, so I think that's important, you know, for companies in general to maintain that integrity for the creation process, right? You know,
I think it's important too because it's kind of like what you were saying about even about engineers. It's for us, by us type of mentality, and you using the program and the plugins every day. You know what you need. You know what you need in your tool belt, right? Engineers being that. Also, if you look at musically, like somebody like Snoop Dogg acquiring Death Row, it's like, now it's in my hands. I'm the person. I know what this means to us. Right. So we're working with those things as far as like inventing something that you needed. The progression of the platform has gotten so big now. I think it's beyond the scope of what anybody ever thought it would be. Right.
I think, and just to cut you off, I'm sorry. I think that's how it should be, right? I mean, I think the biggest companies in the world are based off like individual people having issues and trying to look for a solution. Right, it should be that all the way around, right? You know, Jess, you know, already being an avid user of Auto-Tune, I remember, right, having an idea like, look, as a creative, I know how to keep this integrity, right? You know, I think that mindset is what I like to preach to everybody, is being able to understand that, yes, these are all big companies and they all do incredible shit, but it's like, if you're dealing with the issue yourself, it's not, you know, just come with a solution, right? Come with a solution, and, you know, you might end up being the next Auto-Tune, right? You know what I mean? End up being, you know, another platform that can help aid solutions.
I want to talk about the mixing from a mixing standpoint, right? A lot of people here are mixing engineers. People watching at home are mixing engineers. From a mixing standpoint, auto-tune is something that I think a lot of people get wrong initially because of the difficulties in knowing keys and knowing different frequencies and stuff like that. Can you give some tips and tricks that you have used personally from that perspective?
When it comes to using auto-tune in a mix, sometimes I don't use it.
Okay.
You know, like on a lot of the Kanye records, we didn't use auto-tune. I mean, you know, it doesn't suit every song. It's like if you want a raw rap vocal and it doesn't need it.
I think nowadays it's being used wrong on purpose, right? To get
It's a stylistic thing.
Exactly. It's all about texture. It's all about, you know, personal taste. You know, you wouldn't believe the amount of sessions that I get from artists and the keys are all wrong and it's just not used properly. But as soon as you clean it up and, you know, put it in the right key, the artist is like, yo, something sounds off. Yeah. You know, it's crazy, right? You know, it's
either that or the 808 is out of key.
Yeah, one of them. But it's like it just shows that it's, you know, it's to taste. You know, it should be in key. You know, it's created to that, but it just shows that these tools are created to do with what you want with them, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was say it's a creative tool, and the one thing that I use a lot that I didn't. So when we invented it, I didn't think that I would be using it this way, but like I wanted AutoKey to display the frequency in hertz as well as the key and scale. Oh, okay. Right? So it tells you the actual key. So like if your song is in 440 and like, you know, a lot of times when you sample something, your sample might be 444 or 438 or 436 and you don't necessarily know. AutoKey is great because you can see if you're sharp or you're flat. Because a lot of the time you might have a vocal in a song and it might just sound a little bit sharp or a little bit flat and you're just like, it bothers me, I don't know why. But really it's just that the music might be sharp or flat, just slightly, but in key. So AutoKey allows you to see the actual frequency in hertz.
Right. That's crazy.
So you can pitch then the music to 440 or change auto-tune to reflect where the sample is.
That's important.
Yeah.
You brought up Kanye, and I want to talk about something that like everybody argues about Kanye inventing a style as far as the 808s. He invented a style called heartbreak, right? And that was like, I don't know what it is in technical terms, but the way that he described it is like, it's not auto-tune, but it's not regular vocals, but it's not auto-tune and heartbreak. From your perspective, can you speak to that? Like, as far as like...
I really I didn't work on that record.
No, not working on that record, but I'm saying when you look at somebody that's using something like auto-tune, right? But say it's not that, is that like you said, it's a creative tool, but
it's an instrument.
It's just an instrument at that point, right?
Yeah. I think if I can speak on that, because I can definitely understand the use case of it, right, in certain instances. And from what I've studied and like just seen firsthand is using, like I mentioned yesterday, you know, vocal is nothing but an instrument, right? So adding the distortions, adding the auto tunes, adding, you know, all these other things, you know, it's basically adding a specific texture to that particular part of a song. You might go back and hear a lot of stuff on 808s or even like Yeezus, right, where he's just screaming in cadence of a specific tone, right, but having auto tune and distortion added onto it that's giving like a feeling, like, you know, like a feeling of anxiety or a feeling of, you know, so, you know, I think that's when you really start looking at the tool, the utility of like an auto-tune or just that process of mixing when looking at a vocal as an instrument, right? Just screaming into a mic, but then going and playing with the pitches, right? Adding distortion, adding reverb to make it sound like a texture, right? I think specifically Mike Dean, who, you know, was involved with a lot of those projects, you know, I definitely can imagine that's where a lot of the inspiration came from.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say Jeff Basker was very was really involved in heartbreaks and 808s.
Killed it.
And I spoke to him in depth about working on that record.
It was crazy because when that album came out, bro, it sounded like nothing that was out during that time.
Yeah.
You know, and it almost took me like a good month before I like realized what the fuck was really happening sonically. I'm like, yo, like, I don't understand it, but I can't stop listening to it. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, I think as a great artist in general, right, every album from Graduation, you know, all the way down, right? He came new with different sounds, different styles, right? Different everything. And I think that just attests to just his genius, you know what I'm saying?
But then when we was in Wyoming and we was working on the Ye album, we had a sign on the door that was like, no auto-tune, no acoustic guitars. Like,
it said no auto-tune.
Really?
It said, Jess, get the fuck out.
So basically, fuck me.
Nah, but it's just you know, each album or each project has a flavor, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's fine.
So if somebody comes to you and they're like, yo, I want to work on this project with you, and these are the stipulations, you don't have no problem with that?
No, it's fun.
Damn, that's crazy.
I mean, I think it shouldn't be a problem, right? As engineers, we're just tools in the studio that help the artists take their shit to the next level, right? Yeah. You know, so when it comes to, obviously, you know, there's boundaries and there's, you know, things that you don't want to cross as a creative, but you know, it's just adding your 2 cents to something that was already in motion sonically, you know.
Yeah.
I want to talk vocals with you. Voices are instruments. Ali always points that out. Vocal producing somebody, mixing, whatever the case may be. You got Jesse Reyes, you got shit all the way to Ye, then you got Pop Smoke. Those are 3 completely different frequencies vocally, right? What's your approach to is it the same workflow or is it a different workflow for each individual voice structure?
It's different.
Okay.
Yeah. So I kind of like approach it with a similar angle of what I do, like my working method.
What's your chain? Let me know. What's your chain? What is that? What is that flow?
You're wearing it, ain't you?
What is it? Start from the top.
I don't do that stuff, bro. I don't.
Stop lying to the people, Jess.
Chains. I don't have chains.
I'm fucking with you.
I sold all my chains, man. I have an SSL console, just like you. And I take my outputs out of Pro Tools and I just EQ and compress, and then I have outboard gear and 1176s and LA2As and stuff like that. And I don't really, it's funny because, like, you know, Avid, they wanted me to show a mix. And I was like, you want to see a Pro Tools session with like no plugins in it? Right. And just a blank session with all the faders are at 0? That's my mix.
Right. I feel that.
Do you? No, I was going to ask about, because you just brought up outboard.
Yeah.
Are you opposed to working in the box?
Yeah.
How many here mix analog? Is obviously a lot of people have access
said,
to analog. Having a little hybrid.
Well, because we were talking to, shout out to the youngin, David Young and Kim yesterday, and he's 99% in the box.
Right.
And you're opposed to working.
That's fine.
So have you done it before? Have you worked it?
Oh, yeah, for years.
Okay, what's the differences do you notice or challenges have you faced?
Shit don't knock.
Clarity.
Shit don't knock?
Yeah. It don't knock. It's just like, I don't know. It's
digital distortion other than analog distortion is completely different. Like, the reason why I fell in love with analog shit and the reason why me and this fucking nerd like mesh so well, bro, is because we understand that like you are the mouse. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not, like, the way you can clip like a 4000, the way you can like get that clean distortion from a board in your drums or your snare, you can never do that in the box, to my opinion, right?
Nah.
Like, the depth, the clarity, the warmth that you get from mixing analog, you know, it's really a cheat code. Like, the people always ask me, like, how do you do this? I'm like, well, shit, turn it up. You know what I'm saying?
It's true. I mean, you know, like, I worked for years just in a computer, you know, like when me and Tiger started out, it was all just in Pro Tools, you know what I mean? And I've got no problem with that. I did Rack City like that, we did Faded, we did all the big records like that, you know? But as the funds got a little bit higher and I was able to spend money on certain things that I always wanted, like SSL consoles and stuff, then, you know, my workflow changed, and you know, the benefit that I got out of working that way is just, I'm into saving time, bro. Right. Like I feel like when I work in the computer, I'm like fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting, and never really truly happy. And when I work on a board, it's just like, oh, there's the song.
I feel like there's a digital ceiling there. That's why, right?
There's so many reasons, bro. It's just like, you know, you got obviously your digital ceiling, and then, you know, like we have the same console, right? We have a G Plus as well, and
mine's is just not in my living room.
Yeah.
This guy just got a brand new condo in Vegas, bro, with the SSL console. What floor is that?
32.
32 floors, the SSL console in the living room. Like, this guy's a maniac.
Well, I haven't finished setting it up yet, but that's the plan.
Is that going to be a studio that people can come to? Is that private?
It's private, but you know, it's going to be like the homies and you know people that want to come to Vegas and record. You know, you want to do an album out there? So.
I want to talk about your challenges personally from working overseas, back and forth. I know you got houses all over the world, but I'm just saying in general, like sending. That's what engineers is for: sending, receiving files, file management, getting paid, stuff like that. Are there challenges from being in London versus in the United States, working back and forth?
I don't really spend a lot of time in London anymore, but what's this thing? That sounds crazy.
Shout out to her. What was that?
Go ahead.
That's E
Throw
sharp.
the tune on that.
They're singing a nice E sharp. But no, I mean, you know,
Let's
Go,
get
girl.
it. Clap it up for whoever that is.
What?
Shout out to y'all.
Hey. I mean, you know, that's a big thing that I've been trying to figure out lately is file management.
File management.
Remotely.
Yeah.
Because going between LA and Vegas and moving around and stuff, it's difficult. You know, you take drives, and then now we're dealing with Atmos files. They're big, aren't they? And you ain't got files. You ain't got drives big enough for the files for Atmos really to move around with. Something
we were talking about yesterday was choice of storage, right? Some people trust the cloud. Some people don't trust the cloud.
Yeah. No, I don't put anything in the cloud. But
nothing.
Nothing
in the cloud at all.
Nothing in the cloud. No, I don't use.
That's crazy.
WeTransfer. I don't use Dropbox. Like our accounts are some of the most hacked accounts in the world. Like between me and Max Lord and like you know what I mean. It's like everyone's trying to get into our stuff.
Right.
So we stay away from it. I've got a RAID system in the place here in LA. And that syncs to a RAID system that I have in Nevada, in Vegas, and in real time, they're syncing up together.
So you have your own cloud, essentially.
Essentially, yeah.
Right.
And then both are on fiber connections, so it's fast. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And then if a record label needs, you know, a deliverable, then they can access it directly.
Oh, okay. So essentially, you set them up with their own access in specific places on the drive.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. And you have your own cloud.
Yeah.
I thought you were like FedEx and hard drives, like it was 1990.
Well, for some of the stuff, the A&Rs come to the house and pick it up because we just don't trust even sending a link.
Word.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you know, yeah.
You just told me that you just worked on Jesse Reyes' album. Congrats on that. Also, Ray Shremmer's album.
Thank you.
The approach of doing different genres of music, from your perspective, is it a different workflow as well, like the vocals I was asking you?
Oh, you did ask that. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
It's different, you know. Like the way that I would approach Pop Smoke's vocal, bless his heart, was totally different from the way that I approached Jesse's vocal, for instance. But Pop, I sort of saw Pop as having a husky voice, like kind of like Nas, like The Game. So I kind of approached it from that perspective. It was like, I'm not really somebody who uses references, but I did find myself listening to like the documentary a lot throughout the Pop Smoke process. And I wanted to get that aesthetic from him. You know, I wanted to make it timeless.
That's a good
I didn't want it to
reference.
sound like 2022 or 2020. I wanted it to sound like 2010. You know what I mean?
Do you ever go through demoitis? Because that's something we were talking about too, from an engineer's perspective. It's not just an artist's illness; it's also an engineer's illness as well.
Yeah.
It's fucked up.
Demoitis is a rough one, man. It's the thing that I deal with the most.
Okay.
Working with artists, so I think that I'm really cognizant of when it's affecting me, and I try to not get involved with demoitis.
So how do you know at that point, how do you know the mix is done?
But you just know. And also, like, time's run out. You know what I mean?
Okay, so you work to the deadline, or you just know it's done?
No, I just know it's. I don't spend too long on a track, like
Okay.
4 or 5 hours, 6 hours at the most, and then send it. I don't spend long. It's like like we ain't got that sort of time. Like maybe when I was like 16, I was probably like going round in circles and fighting things for days on end. But like now, I just sort of like do my thing and just let it go.
I know we're going to take some questions. I know you have questions, but last thing I want to get to is we talked about the whole auto-tune journey. I want to know from your perspective and your team, I want to try to get some classified information if I can, but what does the future of auto-tune look like from a brand, a company, and a sonic standpoint?
Oh, wow. That's a big question.
You don't have to give us anything that's classified, but...
Well, we've just released, yesterday we just released EFX Plus, which is, if you guys have been using it before, it's like a modular auto-tune. I wanted something like, kind of like how Isotope do the sort of like, you know, the drag and drop stuff. And I wanted something like that early on. So it was like, we created that so that we could have like all the effect chains in one. It's getting better. And the one that we released yesterday is really good, man. You can drag and drop, you can solo effects in place. It's really pretty cool. Like, I've got some presets on there that sound like I've got like 7 plugins on it. They sound like finished lead vocals, and it's just auto-tune EFX Plus.
Okay.
And Auto Key came out yesterday as well, Auto Key 2. So that's got a lot of big upgrades in it. And then...
yeah, that one. Tell us about that one. Whatever that one was, tell us about that.
I mean, we're getting into the musical instrument space, you know, because we've always been like effects and like, you know, we've always been effect plugins, haven't we? So we're getting more into the musical instrument space, and it's more about using our infrastructure and our algorithms to create playable instruments.
Perfect pitch.
Oh.
Well,
So,
I had this idea to do. Like, I remember I was over at Chainsmokers' house, and like they were like doing this vocal thing, and it was like, and like they were doing it in Ableton, and I thought there's got to be an easier way to do that. And so like we came up with this idea of doing this plugin called Slice. We called it Slice. It's like it came from an idea because I used to like chop up samples on an Akai sampler. Like back when, I mean, you know, like 1996 or whatever, but we used to use Recycle. We used to chop up our samples like that using Recycle, and then we'd send it to the MPC or to the Akai, and then we'd be able to play our chopped samples. And I thought, you know, obviously you got like Simpler and Sampler in Ableton that you can do that with, but like I thought, what if we had an auto-tune product where you could chop a cappella up, it would assign it to the relative keys of the pitch and key and scale, but then also you can change the key and scale in real time.
Like randomize it.
Or randomize it, and then play them in the key and scale of your song.
That's crazy.
Now,
I used
that's
to do
crazy.
that. I used to do that like manually with like a Fab filter.
Right.
Right? Where like Fab Filters is an incredible plugin that I use from shout out to Sound Toys, you know, a company I actually really fuck with. But there was this Fab Filter effect where you can go down and they would chop up and do these crazy little effects with vocals where you just go and just try to find like a quirky effect. I think I did it on Good Kid, Mad City on Mad City. The vocal at the end when it was going up and down in pitch and doing all the crazy.
I remember that one.
You know what I'm saying? So that concept.
I wondered how you did that.
That was hard, yeah. It was between a Fab Filter and Serato pitch and time. Serato pitch and time. But that what you're talking about now, I can see definitely tons of use cases for that.
hell yeah.
But you know, we released the first version, and at the moment you have to install your libraries manually and so on. But the idea is to get it into the cloud, get artists creating their own sound, sharing them, selling them, creating a sort of, you know, a marketplace for creativity.
That's fire. Hey, we gotta wrap real quick. Just gotta catch a flight. So scan the barcode. Make sure you hit engineers.com. And make sure you follow Jess and all that good stuff. We'll be right back here in about 10 minutes. We got Josh Goodwin.
That's
thank
my
you.
boy. Where's Josh?
Make some noise for Jess Jackson.
Make some noise for Jess, man.
Thank you.
Real
man.
quick, man, before we break, man, I want to give my boy some flowers, man. This is somebody who, you know, coming in the game, I was a fucking pest. Like, I was in everyone's MySpace DMs. I was like, I'm showing up to people's sessions unannounced. Like, you're going to teach me the shit. right? But Jess is somebody who's always been supportive, has been there for me every step of the way, in good and in bad times. So, you know, thank you for your support.
Thanks,
I always talk shit because you're from the UK. But, you know what I'm saying? I'm always just giving them shit. But, you know, it's one of my closest
What kind of shit is that? Like, you're just paying someone a compliment and then you hit them with that
fuck
one.
you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's
fuck
love.
you too, bruv.
But no, man, please show some love for Jess Jackson.
Thank
man.
you, bro.
Other side of this wall, make sure you hit engineers.com.